development or coastal planning. We have national plans, we have state plans, we have local government plans. The fact is none of those were integrated. And this management effectiveness assessment really showed us very clearly and allowed us to show others that we need to get better integration of our planning. So working through this process has actually helped us as managers as well. All this is online, and the documents I think you might find useful, but probably even more useful is what we call Outlook Online. So if you go onto the Great Barrier Reef website, you can click on any one of those chapters and get the source information that led to the statements in the document. So here I've given you the chapter of commercial and non-commercial use, and if I was to click on the fishing icon, up comes a web page with status of fishing, management of fishing, benefits of fishing, and impacts of fishing. And each one of those has the actual reference, a short summation of the information, and a hot link to the actual document. So this, I think, would be useful for managers and for planners and for policy people elsewhere to use the information on the Great Barrier Reef website. Just to sort of finish up, people say, well, why do you think the Great Barrier Reef is effective? I've listed here what I think are some of the reasons we are effective. We've got very strong political support from all levels of government and across all political parties. We've got a very sound and effective legislative framework. We're lucky, but that is a really important component. The third point, we are taking this ecosystem level approach to our management. We're not just thinking about the water. Our jurisdiction doesn't even go over many of the islands, but we think way outside and we manage the entire ecosystem that has an influence on the marine park. To do that, we've got very well developed and integrated management across different federal and state agencies. And again, in such a large area, we couldn't do it unless we had that integrated management. We actually spend a lot of our effort as an agency just coordinating other agencies. That zoning plan I outlined is a really sound basis for management, but I stress it's only part of the management approach. We're lucky also that many people recognise the Great Barrier Reef is an important icon. We've also got industries like the tourism industry and the fishing industry now recognising that the health and the future of their industry depends on having a healthy Great Barrier Reef. So this has been a lot of work to get them to realise their future, their sustainability requires a healthy environment. The last thing I've listed there, we're lucky we've got very good, effective research. And what we've been able to do, working with the universities and the other agencies, is actually prioritise it. So they're effectively doing research on the issues that are most important to us as managers. I mentioned climate change as the biggest threat to the Great Barrier Reef. People say, well, how can you as an agency deal with such a huge global issue? Our approach is to say, if we can take the other pressures off the Great Barrier Reef, we'll give it a better chance to cope. So I've listed here a whole series of things we're doing to try and improve the resilience. We're spending a lot of effort and a lot of money trying to improve water quality, particularly coming off the land. We're continuing to work on biodiversity. Just because we've got a good zoning plan, protecting 1/3 in no-take, doesn't mean we've got all the aspects of biodiversity protection. We're working very closely with our Queensland state colleagues to ensure that the fisheries are even more sustainable. And there's many good examples. Probably the best one is the trawl industry. When you think about the trawl industry from 2 decades ago to where they are today, huge difference. Today, every trawler in the Great Barrier Reef has to have, by law, a vessel monitoring system transponder. Every trawler has to have bycatch reduction devices. Every trawler is, through the zoning, restricted to less than 1/3 of the Great Barrier Reef. There are just so many changes in the way we manage trawling today. It's probably one of the more sustainable fisheries. And I have to say, unfortunately, some of the net and line fisheries are less sustainable. Number 4 there, addressing coastal developments. We're putting a huge effort into working with the state and local governments to ensure that the downstream impacts of the coastal developments are minimised and to retain the habitat that's such an important filter for the water coming into the Great Barrier Reef. fifth one there, we're still doing a lot in terms of trying to set policy, set ways of getting others to recognise the importance of climate change. So just some last points. If people say to me, what are some of the lessons? I would say that I think people get confused. We only manage the users. We don't actually manage the environment. If we had no users in the Great Barrier Reef, it'd be a much healthier area. I'd also stress that one size does not fit all. In other words, the model we've got in the Great Barrier Reef doesn't apply even elsewhere in Australia, let alone over in this Costa Rica or Panama. One of the things we've got are very clear objectives for our management. They're nested, so we have a very broad goal. Under that, a broad objective for the whole marine park. Each one of those zones has its own set of objectives. So we need to measure against something. We've got a basis against which to measure whether we're being successful. Monitoring and enforcement are very important. There's no doubt about them. But I would stress so are communications and engagement and stakeholder involvement. Today we're putting a huge amount of our resources into partnerships. Partnerships with industry, like the fishing industry, partnerships with local government, partnerships with all different sectors to try and get them to understand our interests and our concerns to work more effectively. Last couple of points. I think people think if they set up a model like the Great Barrier Reef, they could get to where we are, very quickly. I need to remind people it took us decades. We started in 1975. By 2004, we had 1/3 as no take, and we're still improving. So this is a long-term approach. And the last, I think, really important point, it's not about percentages. People have heard that we've got 1/3 of the Great Barrier Reef protected, and so they say we've got to rush out and make 1/3 of our marine area protected. That's not the approach I'd advocate. It's more about saying we want to have a representative approach. Even if you only get 1% of the entire area protected, if that 1% is protecting examples of all the different habitat types and can show people the benefits, I think that's a far more healthy approach to management than saying I want 20% or 30% or whatever. So I'll leave it there. I just want to also thank Marviva in particular for bringing me here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions?